You are listening to the Nature's Premier Podcast, episode 35. Here on the Nature's Premier Podcast, we talk about everything from bees to babies and sustainable living. Join us while we talk about natural parenting and different ways to live a more sustainable lifestyle for ourselves and our future generations to come. Now let's begin. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nature's Premier Podcast. I am your host, Brooke Nichols, and I'm thrilled to be here with another episode for you all today. We are in the new year. Happy 2018, everyone. We hope you're off to a great start. It's going to be a strong year ahead in many different areas of life, politically, socially, environmentally, sustainably. There's just so many bright aspects for the new year ahead. So take it all in and set some sustainable goals to work on during this time that will carry you to a different place with new experiences this time next year. For parents, there are so many things to implement in your child's routine, and this is the perfect time to start strong in the beginning of 2018. So make sure you are following us on Facebook at Nature's Premier, the podcast, where we have Facebook Lives weekly talking about different parenting topics and things you can do to improve the quality of your home and relationships with your family. We are going very strong in 2018 with the podcast and with different content that we will be bringing. So please do make sure to follow us on our social media platforms so you do not miss a beat. Let's start the year off right by talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, the Adopt, Don't Shop movement. But before we begin, we just wanted to shout out our sponsor who covers all of the expenses associated with the podcast. Please consider checking them out and supporting them by signing up for a diaper service if you are in the New York area, or even just following them on social media. Any engagement helps get their work out there. Nature's Premier is New York's cloth and compostable diaper service, providing families throughout Long Island and New York City with a healthier way to diaper their babies. Check them out at www.naturespremier.com to learn more. Now on to the show. Every year, 2.7 million adoptable dogs and cats are euthanized in the United States alone, simply because too many pets come into shelters and too few people consider adoption when looking for a pet, according to the humanesociety.org. This figure sounds shocking, but to be honest, it's likely much, much higher than only 2.7 million euthanizations across the country. This is just taking into account dogs and cats in state facility shelters. This is not taking into account the feral cat colonies and other homeless pets like hamsters, gerbils, rabbits, ferrets, etc. that are abandoned in mass every single year. OneGreenPlanet.org states some very alarming homeless pet statistics just to put things into perspective about how serious the situation really is. And in order to understand why it's so important to adopt over shopping, you need to know the figures that are behind them. There are over 70 million stray animals living in the U.S. to date. Many researchers figure there are many more, but it's truly impossible to figure out the total amount of stray animals. But it has been estimated to be over 70 million in America alone. Of this figure, 70 million, only about 6 to 8 million cats and dogs enter the nation's 3,500 shelters every year, according to the Humane Society of the United States. That evens out to about 5 homeless animals for every homeless person in the U.S., reports DoSomething.org. Out of the 6 to 8 million cats and dogs, 1 in 4 animals brought into shelters are pit bulls, or pit-associated breeds and mixes, currently the most wrongly marginalized dogs in the U.S. and many other parts of the world. Around only 10% of animals entering shelters have been spayed or neutered, which is problematic considering in just 6 years, one unspayed female dog and her offspring can create 67,000 dogs, and one unspayed female cat and her offspring can produce 420,000 kittens in 7 years, reports Watauga Humane Society. About 30% of shelter dogs are eventually reclaimed by their owners, with cats much farther behind at only 2 to 5% reclaimed. And now do understand when an animal is not reclaimed, they are often euthanized more times than not because these shelters, especially in Manhattan, they're full. They're kill shelters because they can't hold these amount of animals. They cannot, contain these animals. They cannot pick them up off the street. They cannot take surrenders. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when they surrender a pet, that pet is probably going to die within the next 3 days, most likely the day, depending on where you drop them off. So always think about that. Statistically, only 3 to 4 million cats and dogs are adopted from shelters every year. So why does this happen? How do we have over 70 million homeless pets in the US and such a small adoption rate versus an enormous euthanasia rate? This is a pretty big rabbit hole one can get stuck in. So let's just address some easy surface issues with these numbers. One of the big reasons why we have such an issue with packed shelters and homeless pets is because of animals being gifted as babies to those who do not know how to care for these pets. Now, this is a big one that I wanted to touch on today because there are many families that listen to the podcast, and I do just want to shed light on this serious situation because a lot of people don't realize that many people do gift animals. It's very common, it's very popular, and it's something that's very problematic. So just tune on, have an open set of ears. This is completely non-judgmental, but I am going to go over statistics. I am going to go over the situation as I see it, and working in this industry that I'll get down later, in the episode. It is something that's very problematic and something that needs to be addressed. So definitely tune in with an open ear and open heart and, just learn why it's not the best gift to give a child or even an older child. All baby animals are adorable. That's an absolute fact. Even like rats and, things or little critters that people don't deem as being cute when they are older, people think they're adorable when they are younger. There's just something really sweet and serene, about an Easter basket full of baby bunnies or chicks or a puppy running around on Christmas or a sweet kitten even purring on a child's lap. However, many people still have some warped view that these animals will stay small and won't, quote unquote, get that big, or they won't be that expensive to handle. When a child, for example, receives a pet as a gift, it always is joked that it would in turn be the parents' or caretaker's gift because everyone knows a young child is not going to care for that animal long term. They don't have money nor the patience to give the animal what it needs, or even just common sense, they don't have the resources. That comes from the parent or caretaker. A very common situation that happens way, way too often is a child or someone is gifted an animal that they love for the first few days, maybe weeks, more rarely months, and then they get sick of caring for it. The bunny in the cage gets less and less attention. The dog isn't being taken outside as frequently and is having issues and accidents in the house. Or maybe the cat's litter box isn't being cared for and no one wants to look after it. Many people during this challenging time completely reconsider the gift and look to relocate the animal or simply let it go. I have heard many people say, well, we have a new baby and we can't care for the animal, or I dropped it off at a no-kill shelter, it will be fine. With all due respect, these are very ignorant statements, and these are the exact people who should not have a pet, period, for this exact reason, until they learn what the responsibility is in taking care of this pet. Now, in my personal opinion, an animal should never be a gift, under any circumstance. I think it is very rarely a good idea or a good thing, and it's an awful gift for the person receiving it, and even worse for the animal. I mean, it's a very, very big burden on someone to take care of a pet. It should be looked at as a conscious choice to want to add to your family. A pet is a member of the family, whether people want to, have that association with it or not. When you adopt a pet, you are taking on that 5-year, 10-year, sometimes 20-year plus commitment and responsibility. The biggest issue is that many people have absolutely no desire to keep an animal that long, and they have the wrong attitude when looking for a baby pet to bring home for their kids to play with. Now, this isn't to demonize parents who buy their children pets because, of course, we want our children to experience the love of a pet. There's many, many benefits that we will be talking about on another episode, and that's the harmony between animals and children and all the benefits that come with that. But there's a lot of people that get pets for the wrong reasons, like after a breakup or, maybe they have a friendship that was dissolved and they're looking for a companion or they feel lonely and then they meet somebody later on and then, the pet takes the back seat. I mean, it happens all of the time. And it's very important to assess why you want to bring a pet into your family because, again, these are sentient beings. I mean, they're part of your family. Like, not to go off in a tangent, but I have many different animals that I care for. I am starting to shift my perception on being someone that doesn't want to have pets anymore because I take care of so many. But the ones that I have, I'm obviously taking care of them forever. And I have these cats that I feed. And it's funny because these cats are constantly, they're outside cats. They were domesticated animals that someone had abandoned, and I started to feed them. And they bring me dead rats all the time. I mean, for all of you who know me, I am a big vegan. I cannot, I've been a vegetarian my whole life. I cannot see that stuff. And for Christmas, I had, no lie, 4 different rats that were on my porch. Now, some people would think, oh, that's a present. Other people would think, oh, that's disgusting. And I'm thinking here, I'm like, what did I get myself into? But I made a commitment to these animals, even though they're not in my home, and even though I didn't personally buy them or adopt them, that I was going to care for them. So I'm taking the good and I'm taking the bad, and I know that I'm probably going to get these little, gifts, should I say, for the rest of their lives. So it's something that I deal with. It's just a commitment that you take on, and it's something that a lot of people do not take seriously. And we know that this is a large issue because one of the biggest reasons that cats and dogs are in shelters is due to the guardian surrendering them directly. That's one of the statistics. When many people are surrendering their pets, they say, did you find the pets? Was this yours? And you'll see like the most selfish reasons why people surrender their pets. Oh, the dog got too old. The dog can't control their bowel movements, or, the cat is too noisy. The cat is too needy. Like, that's a whole other topic in itself, but it's such selfish reasons, and that's why it's very important to establish why you want to bring a pet into your home and why you want to add it to your family, because more times than not you probably don't want that commitment, so it's something that you should really leave for somebody else that's ready to take that on. Now, with all this said, I will say that there are some children that really want a pet. They are very curious. They want to bring that love into their life. I think it's something that's great for children, and I think it's something that should be well researched with the parent or with the guardian. I always say if someone really wants a pet, especially an older child, to always recommend researching the pet for quite a while with them, several months at least, to see if the curiosity is waned. As we know, especially those with children, you know that the curiosity just runs rampant in children. They are curious about everything, especially cute pets, especially dogs, cats, gerbils, hamsters, birds. I mean, they're curious about everything, right? That doesn't necessarily mean they want to take care of them. So it's really important to go over how to care for a pet, maybe even visit a shelter a bunch of times, just show them the different various types of animals that are out there to see if their curiosity is waned, to see if they're actually serious about the commitment or not. And that's when, as a family, you make the decision and have a plan in place, such as willing to become the caretaker yourself if the child no longer can care for it. Whatever happens, just treat the animal like a member of the family from Jump Street. I mean, seriously, like from the jump, treat this animal as a part of your family. Like an animal that is never going to leave your family unless the animal passes. That's how you have to look at it. Now, of course, with that said, there are very rare issues where a dog may be aggressive or a cat may be aggressive. In that case, you certainly look at your options, but more times than not, and you'd be very surprised, it's a very, very short or a very small percentage of animals that, will behave in that way. More times than not, it's the commitment that the family has towards the pet, looking at it like it's disposable. That's really the main issue. And unfortunately, especially here in the States, there is a very sad belief in many households that pets are certainly disposable, but we know for obvious reasons that is just not the case. They are part of our family. Animals of all walks of life have feelings, especially companion animals that cats and dogs are by nature. And they have a lot to offer families and people in general. A loyal dog will walk the ends of the earth with you if you care for him and show him love. Pet overpopulation is not the millions of surplus of animals born each year, but one animal or one litter turned in, given away, sold, abandoned, or no longer cared for. The correlation is rarely understood by the individuals turning them in, giving away or selling it, or even abandoning their pets. Now, I did have someone mention to me that someone abandoning their animal is very rare, and I extremely disagree with that, if that's even proper English. Like, I very much disagree with that sentiment because there are many, 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 many animals that are abandoned every single year. And what I mean by abandoned is, maybe you have a bunny that you let outside that you no longer care for. Maybe you have a cat that you let roam that you just don't care for. It's just what happens. It is what happens. There are people that, drop their dogs off miles away from their house, not caring what happens to them. There are people that let their hamsters go, that let their, little gerbils, ferrets, anything go. I mean, people really do that, because they think like, oh, well, these animals belong in the wild anyway, and they will have this whole thing in their head that the animal will be okay, but they're not going to be okay. They're domesticated. They need to be in the home. In my situation, there are many, many different animals that I feed, that I care for, that I know have been domesticated, and it's very sad. So, like the cats, there are rabbits that I feed, and you could tell because they're friendly, the way they approach you. A feral rabbit you'll never see. Maybe you'll see them jump away from you, but they'll never come to you. Same thing with cats. Cats don't want anything to do with you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a very sad situation. So, abandonment of animals is a very huge issue, and that is a big reason why we have the issue we do today with pet overpopulation. And that's honestly one of the biggest reasons is overpopulation of pets flooding already overcrowded shelters, and people not spaying and neutering their pets. We mentioned earlier that cats and dogs can produce many thousands of animals within a short few year period. Not spaying or neutering a dog or cat is a very serious oversight on the part of the owner and is one of the biggest contributions to the number of unwanted animals that we see dying every year. The operation is not very expensive, and honestly, if it is to you, then maybe holding off on adopting a pet is the best option because it really should be a must that these animals are spayed to make sure that they do not reproduce. Now, there are many people who are against doing it for moral or ethical or other different types of reasons, and if that's the case, that's your prerogative, but make sure that your pet never has any type of contact with another unaltered male or female animal for up to 10 plus years. So if you have a dog that you refuse to have spayed or neutered, make sure that animal is not around any intact other dogs because it is going to be a problem. They are going to act on instinct and they will breed for sure. Now, I know that sounds like super dramatic, you guys, but take this from someone that feeds cat colonies in her very rare, non-existent spare time. I see firsthand how fast these animals reproduce and the pain and suffering they face, especially in New York's very cold and unforgiving winters. There are way too many cats specifically in our streets that are dying every day, either getting hit by cars, starving, freezing, or even sometimes being poisoned, which is obviously illegal. Too many people do not mind having cute kittens grow up around their neighborhood or letting their unspayed or unneutered cat go outside and reproduce. The truth is, though, that these colonies are growing and not enough people are stepping up to help cull the population. I am part of a trap and release program, an unofficial trap and release program. We trap animals, we trap cats, and we bring them to get spayed and neutered, and then we bring them back into their colonies. So, we'll feed them, but as long as they aren't reproducing, that is the end goal here. And I see these cat colonies near me growing every single year. It's honestly absolutely heartbreaking. One of the reasons why I got into rescuing cats is because one night I was trying to help trap a wild bunny that I saw was clearly abandoned after having been domesticated. Again, like I said earlier, animals will act differently towards humans depending on their past experiences. A lot of times bunnies are let go. People think that, and certainly there's wild bunnies and that's no problem. I have wild bunnies. And people will think that, oh, they'll be fine. But a lot of times, if a bunny's by themselves in a cage for years and whatever time period, and they're being fed on the daily, and then they're let go, like the bunny has to learn how to survive. Now, obviously, you have instincts, but it's just very sad because it's just abandonment of an animal. In my opinion, that's animal cruelty. But anyway, I was trying to capture this one bunny. I knew it was domesticated. I told a friend of mine about it. We were going to trap it. We were going to, spay and neuter it, and she was going to take care of it. So what I did was set a trap up right in front of my front door where I saw the rabbit last, and I put a bowl of water in there, I put some carrots in there, and I put a very warm blanket in there. Now, the next morning when I go outside, I open the door. It was maybe about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'll never forget. I'm like, that is a big rabbit. That does not look like the rabbit. And because I caught something, I'm like, oh, okay. And I literally look under the blanket, and it was a cat that was half dead. It was an emaciated cat, skin and bones, had its head right in between the carrots and the water bottle, or the water bowl, rather. And I was like, oh my God. I literally brought the cat in the house. I didn't even care at this point. Normally, I don't bring animals into my home, but this cat was clearly dying. And I brought the animal in, and we, cleaned the animal up. I fed the animal food. Really, I had to more like spoon feed her. I was feeding her tuna fish. because she didn't have any energy, and she was frozen. She was very, very cold. So we warmed her up. My friend came over and we brought her to the vet. She was very close to dying, but we did revive her, and my friend fell in love, and she still takes care of her today. Her name is Whiskers. But that is a situation that oftentimes has a very sad ending. It is something that more times than not, that animal would have died, and no one would have batted an eye. They probably would have just, buried the animal or never looked into it further. But I see it too much. And that cat was very lucky, very, very lucky that she stumbled upon someone like me, because many people don't pay attention to that. They don't see the issues that we have with overpopulation and with colonies. And I just knew what to do, but most people don't. And they'll think, oh, well, the cat will be fine on its own, and that's something that we really have to seriously sit down and talk about as a society, because this over pet population problem is just too much, and it's heartbreaking, especially when you are on the front lines and you're seeing all these animals that don't have homes and they wind up dying. It's very, very sad. Now, with some of the backstory of the overpopulation of pet numbers out of the way, and some of the reasons why dealing with this issue on such a massive scale is so important, let's talk about why it's so important for us to adopt pets and not buy them. This issue right here in itself is the tip of a bigger problem that we will cover on an entirely different episode. Like I said earlier, pet sales and breeders and puppy mills are such a deep rabbit hole that it's very difficult to include it all in a shorter episode. So rest assured, the backstory of pet sales in the States will be covered at length in a future episode coming soon. It's just a very serious topic that I want to cover appropriately, as many people are unaware of the very dirty underbelly of breeding pets in America. The movement of Adopt, Don't Shop stems from the need to relocate homeless pets and support shelters and rescues that look for homes for these animals. Most people who love animals and have pets of their own, you would think, would understand the concept of adopting over buying a pet, but the pet sales industry is a huge machine that hooks many families into buying from pet shops and breeders alike, instead of supporting desperate shelters and rescues. A lot of people will drive by a cute pet store with a bunch of rambunctious puppies and kittens playing in the window and fall in love with them. However, that sale for that puppy or kitten directly benefits the continuation of something like puppy mill practices and helps cruelty profit and continue the cycle of this horrific industry. For every pet that you buy at a pet shop or from a breeder, one shelter animal dies. Always remember that. Also, the sad truth is when you buy a dog or a cat from a pet store, you are supporting extremely cruel puppy and kitten mills. Again, that is an entirely different episode that we will certainly cover. Now, just to touch on it very quickly, though, what puppy mills are without going into too much depth, because for those of you who know me, this is a topic I'm very passionate on, and I will go into depth. Puppy mills are large-scale commercial dog breeding operations where profit is placed above the well-being of animals. Bred without consideration of genetic quality, this produces generations of dogs with unchecked hereditary defects. Some puppy mills sell to pet shops marketing these pups as young as 8 weeks old. Sometimes they're even younger, which is disgusting. It's very important that families looking to purchase dogs or cats understand the dark underbelly of puppy mills. These facilities are incredibly cruel to their animals, with many different types of stories being reported on exposing them in the media way too often. So many have been shut down, only to reopen under different names and locations. It's just an incredibly cruel industry that I have way too much knowledge about. So again, a future episode will certainly be uncovering this practice. One of the biggest perks of adopting a pet from a shelter instead of buying one is that you are directly supporting that shelter and clearing space for a new animal to have a chance to find a home of its own. So essentially, you are saving two animals when you adopt one from a shelter, one that you are saving and one that is going to fill that seat right after that cat or pup goes home with you. Also, aside from financially supporting a shelter or rescue, you are adopting an animal at a fraction of the cost when buying one. Many facilities that adopt out animals are literally just looking to cover their expenses to keep operations going, whereas breeders and pet stores' main objective is to turn a profit. I will not go on record saying that these pet stores and breeders are bad people per se, but I will say that I do not agree with the practice of buying an animal when there are millions in shelters and even more millions being killed annually. But I digress. Another perk of adopting an animal over buying is that many older animals in shelters are already housebroken. And when I mean older, I'm talking like 6, 7, 8 months old. So if you choose to adopt a slightly older puppy or a dog over a year old, you are getting an animal that more often than not does not need to be trained like a newbie puppy would be that you buy from the pet store. Now, of course, if you are adopting a puppy or a kitten from a shelter, then yes, you need to train them, but they go very fast in shelters, so maybe opening your heart to a slightly older dog will be much less of a headache for you and will be cheaper as well. Another perk of adopting is that your pet will most likely already be spayed, neutered, up to date on vaccines, and possibly even microchipped, which is all rolled into the very low cost adoption fee. When you buy a pet from a pet store, all of those very expensive procedures are going to be paid by you. Again, at the end of the day, pet stores and breeders want to make money. They do not want to pay for anything they do not have to. It's all a numbers game to them, whereas with a shelter or rescue, they are really looking to save a life and will discount wherever they can. One thing I wanted to address is that many people argue that breeding is good because it helps maintain the breed of certain dogs and cats. But what many fail to realize is that so many breeds, especially with cats and dogs, have been completely bastardized, or altered rather, that they are not true to the roots of the breed. Like with many other things in life, businesses and breeders are always looking to make a smaller dog with maybe a cuter bark or a certain type of coloring. Cats, usually they are looking to alter features to make them more exotic, which means they are inbreeding or interbreeding many different breeds to obtain a unique look. And why I bring up businesses is because you see that even in like the diaper industry, they're always looking to, make the diapers thinner, make the diapers more absorbent, and that's no different from the breeding. They're going to breed these animals with different other breeds with, maybe even inbreeding, which I know for a fact is a very big problem, just to alter the product, so to speak. It is incredibly unhealthy and does not serve anyone other than the breeder or the puppy mill, as they are only looking for a certain aesthetic of this animal. With the millions of animals being dumped in shelters annually, you can be sure to find possibly purebreds and different types of dogs that fit your personality. You do not need to shell out hundreds, even thousands, many thousands of dollars, for a dog or an animal who is possibly going to grow up to be unhealthy anyway. Shelters have everything you are looking for, just have to open your heart to an abandoned animal. Now, some people like the look of the breed or whatever else. I mean, there's a lot of ego that gets played into adopting an animal or buying an animal rather, but it's something that you really have to step outside of your comfort zone if that's something that you're into and really look at the situation at hand. One of the biggest benefits of adopting an animal is the gratitude that animal will always have for you. Everyone says a dog is a man's best friend, and I truly believe that. When you adopt an animal from a shelter, you're giving them a second chance. They're getting a second chance that they would probably not get if you did not consider them. Yes, of course, there's some cute dogs that come in that may be adopted quick, but let's just keep it real here. A lot of people want puppies, they want kittens. All those older dogs that have so much life to give are often just euthanized because people don't want to deal with an older animal. They like the look of a cute puppy. But if you give an older dog a chance, they're going to give you their life. They're going to give you their honor. They're going to give you dignity. They're going to give you respect. Dogs are amazing animals like many other animals. Every animal's amazing in my opinion. But it's something about dogs and cats, most likely dogs because a cat has a superiority complex, but cats are great too. I have cats. But something about a dog and giving them a second chance, or a cat giving them a second chance, is something that you can't buy. You can't buy that from them. You know what I mean? Like you could buy a cute puppy and it'll be great and everything's good, but there's something about giving an animal a second chance at life that they will treat you and respect you differently for it forever. There are just so many different benefits of adopting, but I think that gives you the gist of why adopting always trumps buying an animal. Animals have feelings, they are living, sentient beings that need love like the rest of us. We need to stop this disposable pet culture we have. Like I always say, support what's right with your dollar. Do not contribute to the continuation of puppy mills and breeding for profit. It is never a good idea to buy a dog, and in my honest opinion, when there are so many animals who could become your best friend if you give them a chance, buying one is just irresponsible. It's not sustainable. I would understand if shelters didn't exist and people wanted dogs and the only way you could get them was to buy them, that would be a completely different situation. But we have millions upon millions upon millions of animals that are being born into this world only to be killed a few months later because of neglect, because of being discarded, because of being, not cared for, of being abused. There's a whole animal abuse industry out there with dog fighting, and that's a whole other topic. But it's really a very bad move to buy an animal, in my opinion, especially a cat or a dog. I learned this the hard way. Just to give you my story real quick. Over 13 years ago, my husband, boyfriend at the time, he had actually bought me a dog. He bought me a dog, and I still have her today. Her name is Annie. She is a Yorkshire Terrier. And I love her very much, but I've had a guilt knowing that an animal could have been adopted, and he bought me her. Now, again, she's older. She's going to be 14. I love her to pieces. She is my oldest daughter. I tell everyone that. I tell everybody I have 4 daughters, and she is my oldest. However, she is extremely sick, and she is the byproduct of poor breeding. Many times I have been told to put her down. She's too old. She's blind. Her legs give out. But she's my baby. She's my animal. I made a long-time commitment to her, and I hope she lives until she's 40. I mean, honestly, I love her to pieces. She's my best friend, she means the world to me, but she has so many health issues. And this is what happens when you buy from breeders, and of course my husband wanted to do something nice. He wanted to get me a cute puppy. And I wish I would have known what I knew now, because I would have returned her, and I would have, adopted an animal from a shelter. I would have been like, no, I don't want to see her, return her, because I knew she would be sold. She was adorable. That was an absolute fact. But there's a part of me that always feels very guilty about having her. However, she's my pet, and, I see that many people that I know probably would have gotten rid of her by now, because she's older. She's an old lady, in dog years, she's like 80. So she's having a hard time, but I made a commitment to her, and I will stand by her until she takes her last breath. But I will always believe that buying an animal is never a good idea, and should I ever want to bring another dog into my life, I would never even consider buying an animal. The only thing I would buy is maybe a leash or, a collar. I would never buy an animal again. I would always adopt, and I think it's something that you should consider too. There's just way too many benefits of adopting, and in order for us to save these animals, to really make a difference, adopting over shopping is what we have to do. So thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of the Nature's Premier podcast. I apologize, this one was a little longer, but for those of you who listen weekly, you know that I'm very passionate, and some topics definitely bring out more of the more chatty Brooke than other topics. But definitely, share this episode with a friend. Share this episode with people that that are considering buying pets in the new year. It's something that's very, very important that we learn about, we talk about, and we open up the discussion so we can continue to save lives of many animals that are dying even as we speak. If you are looking to collab, if you have any questions and have future suggestions for the show, please do feel free to email us at podcast@naturespremier.com. We absolutely love hearing from our listeners. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next week, we hope you have a wonderful, stress-free week ahead. Take care, friends.